And moving slowly down to the area of the neck. Again, noticing any sensations. Moving slowly across to the left shoulder. The left upper arm. Down to the left forearm, noticing any sensations there. And moving slowly down to the left hand. Right down to the fingertips. And moving back up to the right shoulder, noticing any sensations. The right upper arm. Moving slowly down to the right forearm. And down to the right hand. Right down to the fingertips. And then moving back up to the upper back, the area of the shoulder blades. Moving slowly down to the middle back area. And moving slowly down to the lower back area. And moving back up to the upper chest area. Down to the middle chest area. Moving slowly down to the area of the stomach. And down to the abdomen. Noticing any sensations. And moving across to the left hip. Moving slowly down to the left thigh. Down to the left knee. Moving slowly down to the left calf and shin. Down to the left ankle. And slowly down to the left foot. right down to the tips of the toes. Moving back up to the right hip. Moving slowly down to the right thigh. Down to the right knee. The right shin and calf. Down to the right ankle. And slowly down to the right foot. Right down to the tips of the toes. And now simply observe sensations throughout the entire body. Any questions about that practice?
I have to do this scan very easily.
Yeah.
But I was all the time aware of my breath. And actually it's happening to me when I'm doing the open rounds as well. I'm aware of the breath at the same moment.
Yeah. I mean, that's quite common if we've been using the breath as our main object previously in our practice. Then of course our attention will naturally go back to the breath. It's okay. I mean, just in this practice, if you notice you go back to breath, just go back to where you were. That's all. I mean, it's just a matter of getting used to doing the scan, and over time you'll find that you probably won't go to the breath so much. And then there's a few more comments about this practice. One is that we can scan in any order. I use just a particular order, starting from the top, going left and then right and so forth. You don't have to do that. In fact, you don't have to start from the head. You can start from the feet and go up. Any order is okay as long as you scan the entire body. Don't miss out any sections in the body. And when we start, it's good to pick fairly large areas at a time. If you pick too small, it's going to be quite difficult to pick up sensations. So fairly large areas to start with. And the instruction is to, when you go to that area, is just observe. And as soon as you start to pick up some sensations in that area, you can move on. If you don't pick up anything, just stay there a bit longer. And then after a bit more time, if you don't pick anything up, then move on anyway. Don't just get stuck there. And also part of the instruction normally is if you come to an area of the body where there's strong sensations, also just stay there a little bit longer and observe that.
What is it stronger?
Like if you have pain somewhere or a lot of tension somewhere.
And if it's nothing?
Nothing, stay a little bit longer. And then eventually if nothing comes up, then move on anyway. That's usually the instruction.
What was the intention for this?
The intention is to apply mindfulness to the body, to investigate the reality of the body in terms of, is there anything here that is static, or is everything changing moment by moment? That's the question we have when we do the scan. We're observing to see if the body is impermanent or not. In this case, I mean, we can scan the body and ask different questions, such as this and this.
And this is over the time frame that we're doing the scan, or are we comparing it to a different point in time? Like comparing how our body feels now to how it felt yesterday, or literally as
No, just as we're going through the body. As we're going through the body. And what you will find is that as you get used to this practice and your mindfulness is better and better, you'll be able to scan very quickly, like even like in like one motion, really. But not to take us, you know, generally as a beginner you have to do fairly slowly, and then as we improve our ability, then we can really just like do this like very quick. But if you can't do that, try. Yeah, down the back.
I've done the body scan many times, and maybe I'm stuck.
Stuck.
Stuck in the idea of the body scan.
Right.
Because when I do the body scan, I get the sensation, the experience that the body is not as solid as we think it is.
Great.
This I find very strong. I don't
That's
see
impermanence.
any impermanence, because if I do it again and again, every time I'll reach the right knee,
Right.
I'll have the same sensations.
Right.
So
But
what is the impermanence?
the same sensations. The same. But these sensations are, if you look very, that's why if you have some strong thing there, look closely.
If it's strong and if it's
strong,
then pain is impermanent. But usually when you do the body scan and you don't have any pain, the tingling sensation, the sort of energy that you feel all through, it's very much the same.
Well, similar. I mean, because it's sensations.
Yeah.
Right.
So I don't see the impermanence. What do I miss?
The impermanence here is what you're observing, is it changing moment by moment? Meaning, is it a rising, passing, rising, passing, rising, passing? Or is there just something that's constant?
Every place it's arising and passing.
That's impermanence. That's impermanence.
Okay, thank you.
Good, good, very good.
Is there any meaning if in a specific part of the body you don't feel any sensations or you feel a lot of sensations? What is the meaning behind that?
Well, the meaning, if you don't pick up sensations, is that your clarity is lacking. And so that's why to pay closer attention. Because there are sensations going on all the time, everywhere. So if there's nothing, you don't notice anything, it's because our clarity is missing. So then we pay closer attention.
In a specific part, like everywhere else you can feel something, in a specific part you can't, then it means that you're lacking clarity.
Well, I mean, of course, some sensations are more obvious. Like if your knee's hurting, you'll see that much more clearly than maybe some sensation on part of the skin. So some sensations will be stronger than that. And generally, initially, the places that are blind is where the sensations tend to be a little bit more subtle than in other places in the body.
But what are places that are blind? What does it mean?
Blind means you don't pick up sensations there.
Okay.
That's all. And so just stay there a bit longer and pay closer attention to pick it up.
What about the opposite? If in a specific part you feel a lot of sensations?
Good, you notice it, move on. The instruction is if you notice some quite intense singular thing, just observe that and see if it stays like a solid single thing or not. But if you go to a part and you notice a lot of sensations, good, move on. Just move on.
Anything specific?
Sorry?
Does it mean anything specific?
Again, if it's like this, it's because we're lacking clarity. Because it's strong and we're just sort of seeing, it seems like a single solid thing. So again, that's why to pay closer attention with clarity.
It doesn't seem like a solid thing. It seems like, the tingling.
Well, good, then just move on. Just move on, good. We don't need to stay there. It's only if you get to a point where there seems to be a single solid thing. Pay closer attention to that.
So why in Gwenka we do like ups and downs?
Well, again, just to keep, you go down and up. It's okay. You can do that. That's fine.
Is the assumption that you're watching it from a permanent place?
Permanent place.
Yeah, so the observer is permanent watching something that's impermanent, or are we...
No, we're not making any assumptions. We're just observing. I mean, later we'll look here.
But how can you trust then what you're seeing is impermanent rather than what you're witnessing it through is impermanent?
Well, it is impermanent what you're witnessing it through.
So then you're... Like it's if you're collecting data, if what you're collecting data from is as unreliable as the data that you're getting...
Well, that's why we need Shamatha practice, because without Shamatha practice it is unreliable. That's exactly the point.
So then
Shamatha practice makes the mind reliable because it becomes very calm, clear and focused. It's a sharp tool. Before Shamatha it's completely unreliable. Of course. Without Shamatha, doing Vipassana is like a scientist running an experiment with faulty equipment. I mean, you're going to get different results every time. Similarly, if you've got a faulty equipment of the mind, you run the experiment. This is why, a bit more than a century ago, there was an introspection movement in psychology. It was in the turn of the 20th century, became prominent. That we need to investigate the mind through introspection, but they had because it was Western psychology, they had no idea about how to refine the mind. So after 10 or 20 years of this, it just disappeared because it was completely unreliable. Because it was just like one person said this, another said that, and there's no repetition. There's no, it's not reliable results. That's why Shamatha is important. Otherwise, Vipassana can come up with all sorts of things.
So the assumption is that if you get to the point where you've achieved Shamatha, then what you're observing from is reliable, stable, permanent, whatever words
Well,
you
I
want to
wouldn't use the word permanent, but it's reliable because it can clearly see. Shamatha gives us the ability to clearly see. Without that, yeah, you can investigate all sorts of things. You can come up with all sorts of answers and then not really get anywhere. Okay. Now I want to briefly talk about self. And we'll do a little bit of a passion on self tomorrow morning.
So how you see impermanence of the mind? Also watching the mind,
Yeah, sure.
like what we're doing in Shamatha?
Yeah. See, what's the difference between... is every body scan Vipassana? No. You can scan the body to relax. That's not Vipassana practice. The practice we've been doing, observing thoughts and emotions, just observing them, is that Vipassana? No. But if you do that with a question, if you have a question, is anything you see stable and static, or is everything changing moment by moment? If you have that question, and then you look, then it becomes Vipassana.
The awareness is stable. It's like, the mind, the thought and the emotion are not, they are impermanence, but the observer is also impermanent. It's not
Sure.
like
Of course. That's what you need to check, all of those things.
Are we going to practice these things?
We're going to do a little bit more practice on impermanence and no self tomorrow morning. And then we're going to go on to
What
emptiness.
emotions in mind?
It'll be part of the impermanence practice tomorrow morning. I'm going to do an impermanence practice on all four: body, feelings, mind, phenomena.
But the awareness it's all the time awareness.
Right, but just because something's there all the time doesn't mean it's permanent. See, what we need to understand here, the word permanent doesn't mean existing forever. Permanent means, is this thing changing from one moment to the next or not? So, in fact, the word impermanent and permanent in the text is literally changing and unchanging. So permanent, impermanent is not telling us how long anything lasts. It's just saying, is this thing changing from one moment to the next or not? You can have impermanent things that last forever. Your mind.
That's what I'm saying.
It's impermanent, but it lasts forever.
And the consciousness
Is impermanent and lasts forever.
and thought.
Thought is impermanent and lasts as long as the thought is there. Okay, self. This word self is used in a number of different ways. Sometimes when we use the word self, we just mean self versus others. So then it just means person. So then, of course, this exists. Person exists. Self, as in me, that exists. But here in Vipassana, when we see the word self, it doesn't really, it's not that. That's when we speak in a more conventional sense, in compassion practice, compassion for self and others. It just means person. In Vipassana, when we use the word self, we're talking about how the person exists. And there are a number of false ways of seeing ourselves existing. One is an idea that the self is unchanging, unitary, meaning a single thing, and completely